They say blood is thicker than water, but nobody tells you what happens when the blood starts poisoning your peace. My name is Clara, and I used to believe that family could never betray you. I don't believe that anymore. It started the summer Sophie came to stay with us. She'd just broken up with her boyfriend, the kind of guy who wore leather jackets and promises that expired before breakfast. Ethan, being the kind man he was, said she could stay as long as she needed. I agreed, because she was my sister, and because I still remembered how she used to braid my hair and sneak me cookies when Mom wasn't looking. But that Sophie was long gone. The one who walked through my front door that day was different. Her smile felt too practiced, her hug too brief. Her eyes, they lingered on Ethan longer than they should have. I brushed it off. People see what they want to see, right? I wanted peace. I wanted family. I wanted my sister back. The first few days were fine. She helped in the kitchen, laughed at Ethan's dad jokes, called me Clary like old times. But every night I caught her looking just a second too long when Ethan walked by. Once at dinner, she said, "Clary, you're so lucky. Ethan's such a gentleman. I wish I had someone like him." And the way she said it, soft, lingering, made me tighten my grip on my fork. Ethan chuckled, oblivious. "Well, I'm taken, Sophie." She laughed, but her eyes didn't. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen early. She was wearing one of my shirts, slightly oversized, the kind Ethan had bought me last Christmas. She said she just grabbed whatever was comfy. Ethan walked in, half asleep, and smiled. And I saw it. That small spark between them. Barely there, but enough to light something dark inside me. That's when it began, the slow unraveling of everything I'd built. Days turned to weeks. I'd find Sophie sitting too close to him on the couch, laughing too hard at his jokes, cooking his favorite meals before I could. She'd say things like, "You work too much, Ethan. Clara must miss you." Then look at me like she wanted to see me break. But I didn't. I smiled. I stayed silent. Because silence, I've learned, makes people underestimate you. Still, every night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself why my own sister would cross a line so sacred. Was it jealousy, or just her way of proving she could take anything from anyone, even me? One evening, Ethan came home later than usual. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie undone, and his eyes distant. I asked if everything was okay. He said, "Yeah, just work. Sophie made dinner. You should try it." Sophie, always there, always between us. That night, I walked to the porch. The summer wind was warm, but my hands felt cold. And that's when I made a quiet promise to myself. If she wanted my life so badly, she could have the pieces she thought she wanted, because by the time I was done, she'd choke on them. I didn't know it then, but that summer would end with more than just broken trust. It would end with justice, quiet, poetic, and irreversible. Some betrayals don't arrive with thunder. They slip in quietly, wearing perfume you once lent them. The days blurred into each other. Work, chores, silence. Ethan's eyes were tired, distracted, and Sophie was suddenly always around. If I went to the grocery store, she'd volunteer to keep him company. If I made dinner, she'd add her touch. Every corner of my house started to smell like her lotion, her laughter, her presence, like she was marking territory that didn't belong to her. One evening, I walked past Ethan's office door. It was half closed, and I heard it, that soft giggle. Hers, the one that used to mean comfort, now curdled with venom. "Ethan, stop. Clara will hear." "Relax, she's upstairs," he said, voice low, half amused. My heart didn't break. Not yet. It just slowed. Like it was trying to understand what it had just heard. I didn't open the door. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked back upstairs, quietly. Because a storm doesn't announce itself, it gathers. The next morning, she came to the breakfast table wearing his sweatshirt. My husband's sweatshirt. My sister. In his clothes. In my home. I smiled. That was the moment she lost. She just didn't know it yet. "Sleep well?" I asked, calm, steady. She looked up, startled. Yeah, I did." "Good," I said, pouring coffee. "You'll need the rest. It's your last night here." Her fork froze midair. "What?" "You heard me." I smiled wider. "You've been here too long. Ethan and I need space." She tried to laugh it off, fake and sharp. "Clary, come on, don't be dramatic." "I'm not," I said. "I'm precise." That night, she stayed out late. Ethan didn't come home either. I waited. Not in panic, but in peace. Because I already knew where they were. I'd seen the messages on her phone when she left it charging in the kitchen. I'd read every word. Every lie, every flirt, every plan. They thought they were clever. They thought I was weak. But weakness isn't silence. Weakness is forgetting that silence listens. When they came home past midnight, whispering at the door, I didn't confront them. I just watched. The way a hunter watches her prey. The next morning, I told Ethan I was visiting my mother in Vermont for a few days. He didn't even look up from his phone. "Sure, babe. Drive safe." And that's when I knew I'd already disappeared in his mind. So I decided to disappear for real. But not before leaving something behind. For the next 48 hours, I became the woman they underestimated. I checked our accounts, shifted the house deed, which was still under my name before marriage, moved savings to a separate account, canceled joint credit cards. By the time I left, every thread of financial power in that house belonged to me, and they didn't even notice. When I finally drove away, I didn't cry. I smiled. Because revenge didn't need to be loud. It just needed to be legal. 2 days later, I got a call. Ethan's number. I let it ring. Then another, from Sophie. I didn't answer. Finally, a voicemail. Clara, it's not what you think. Please call me back. Something's wrong. Something was wrong, all right. Their cards weren't working. The bills were unpaid. The car was still in my name. Even the house key didn't open the door anymore. I'd changed the locks. By the time I came back, they were gone. Together. No goodbye, no closure, just empty drawers and a hollow silence. But that was okay, because I didn't need to chase them. The world has its own way of balancing betrayal, and it did. A month later, I got a message from a mutual friend. He left her, Clara, took her savings. She's back at her mom's, broke. I didn't reply. I didn't celebrate. I just stood by the window, sipping tea, watching the sunset. Because karma didn't need my applause. It just needed my patience. They thought they destroyed me, but I was just being rewritten. Time doesn't heal betrayal. It just teaches you how to breathe around the pain. It's been 3 years. 3 long, quiet years since Sophie and Ethan vanished from my life, like ghosts that left fingerprints behind. I rebuilt myself from the ashes they left, moved to a smaller house in Portland, started teaching art at a community college, planted roses in my garden, the kind that bloom even in rain. My mornings were simple: coffee, canvas, silence. And honestly, I was happy. Or I convinced myself I was, until the letter came. It was a Friday. The sky smelled like rain. When I checked my mailbox, I saw an envelope. No return address. Inside, just a single line in handwriting I knew too well. "I'm sorry, Clary. Please let me see you. S." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. It had been years since anyone called me Clary. I stood on my porch staring at the letter until the ink blurred with my tears. She wanted to see me. The sister who destroyed my marriage, my trust, my name. The same sister who once braided my hair and held my hand when Dad died. Part of me wanted to burn the letter, but another part, the one that still remembered love, whispered, "Go." We met at a diner on 6th Street. It was raining outside, heavy and gray. I walked in, and there she was, sitting alone in the corner booth. Sophie. Except she wasn't the same woman who had smiled like a thief years ago. Her hair was dull, her face tired, her hands trembling as she stirred cold coffee. When she looked up, her eyes filled instantly. "Clary?" I sat down. "Don't call me that," I said quietly. She nodded, wiping her tears. I deserved that. For a while, we just sat there, two strangers bound by blood and broken choices. Finally, she spoke. "Ethan left me. He said I ruined him. He took everything, even the money I saved." "You mean the money you stole?" I corrected softly. She flinched. Then she whispered, "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." I stared at her, her once perfect face now haunted by regret. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. "Sophie, you didn't just betray me. You betrayed yourself. You turned love into a weapon, and it backfired." She nodded, crying silently. "You were always stronger than me." I smiled faintly. "No, I just learned how to survive without destroying others." We sat in silence again. Outside, the rain stopped. When I stood up to leave, she grabbed my hand. "Clary, do you think we could ever be sisters again?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw not a monster, but a woman punished by her own choices. I said, "Sophie, we'll always be sisters, but some bridges burn too completely to ever cross again." I walked away. Her sobs followed me out the door, soft, broken, human. That night, I didn't cry. I just looked in the mirror and whispered, "You did it. You forgave her without freeing her." Revenge ends when peace begins, but peace, that takes courage. Months passed after that diner meeting. I never saw Sophie again, but sometimes I'd get postcards. No words, just pictures of places she'd gone. Arizona, Seattle, Nashville. Maybe she was searching for herself, or maybe she was running from the version she became. As for Ethan, I heard he remarried some young woman from his office. I didn't feel jealous, just relieved that his story no longer touched mine, because my story, my real story, had already begun. I started painting again, real art, messy, emotional, full of color and pain and grace. I held exhibits, sold my work, started donating to shelters that helped women rebuild after betrayal. And every time someone asked, "How did you find strength?" I smiled and said, "By losing everything I thought defined me." One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, I walked out to my garden, the roses in full bloom. Their petals glistened under the golden light, each thorn catching the sun like a quiet warning. And I realized that's who I'd become. Beautiful, scarred, still standing. I whispered softly to the wind, "You were wrong, Sophie. You thought love was something to take, but real love, it survives even when it's betrayed." I closed my eyes and smiled. The past no longer haunted me. It had shaped me. I learned that revenge is just anger looking for a place to hide, and forgiveness is what happens when you stop hiding. Now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see the woman they broke. I see the woman who rebuilt herself. And maybe that's what redemption really is. Not forgetting the pain, but growing stronger than the person who caused it. My name is Clara Morgan. I was betrayed by my own blood, but I didn't become my pain. I became my peace.